Hello, welcome to the Hammer and Vajra podcast. So, this first episode will function sort of as a introduction of sorts. Also, just a way of giving credence to a project that I've been planning on for a while, which is actually doing a podcast. I had a lot of followers and some fans and even some people who were just discussing with me who had asked me to either come on their podcast or to do a podcast of my own. And thus I gave birth to this podcast. Hopefully it will be successful. One of my primary goals with this podcast will not only to be bringing more light to my work with the Hammer and Vajra organization and the Hammer and Vajra websites, and ultimately my goal for a actual Hammer Vajra full religious organization, but just to bring light to my project and the Indo-European, pan-Indo-European focused studies and faith and folk studies and general paganism and dharmic faiths, but also to highlight others who are doing the same or who have projects of their own. And I'm planning on doing interviews with them as well. That should be one of the main highlights that's going to happen. And then also to provide those of you out there with, some cultural fun that's not through a lens of certain agendas that are going on today. And it won't always be positive, but when we can be positive on the show, I would like to be positive on the show. And highlight things in media that are worthy of your time and efforts into watching, reading, playing, or experiencing, and also to network with other groups of like-minded individuals, so that if what I'm doing is not your cup of tea, but if someone else is doing something adjacent to it, or they have a in real life organization that you can get involved with to help your spiritual growth, your tribal heritage, or just help you as grow as a person, and you can grow with them. That is one of the goals, is to highlight that and get us all networked. So I'll give a little backstory about me. So starting with sort of how I got into Indo-European faiths. When I was young, I was homeschooled, and I had a classical schooling where we studied history, but we also studied the backgrounds of the cultures of the people we were studying, including European culture, and we did Greek and Greco-Roman myths. I use the word myth lightly. Celtic myths, Norse myths, etc. And then I learned English through the curriculum we were doing with using Greek and Latin root words. So I learned a bit of Greek and Latin with that. My parents are Christians, or were Christians. They're Christians. But I was always into myths, magic, and ancient history. I got into Christian mysticism when I was real young. This was Hermeticism, alchemy, with a bit of course, the Kabbalah. And I was into local mountain tales from where I'm from. A lot of mountain Christianity that I wouldn't say was something that would be acceptable on the mainstream Christian concepts. Some medieval mythical interpretations of Bible stories as well. Little did I know that most of these were founded in paganism. I started to see the mystic parts of religion as the real part, ritual as proper worship, the layout of cosmology and the flow of energies in the universe, and communication with God as being the real path to take. Internal alchemy, as it were. In many ways, this wasn't all too different from some concepts in Buddhism. I started to see through the historical Christian falsehoods. I honestly ended up converting to Vajrayana Buddhism. My interest in Japan and in my high school major was in college also was revolving around Japanese business culture and history. Though for some reason I was always drawn to the gods in Buddhism, such as Indra, Shiva, over that of just the Buddhas. I'll get more into that on another topic. It wasn't long until I noticed that the Buddhist deities, Deva, were Indian, and wondered what my local folk and heritage deities were. I kept seeing the word Aryan in regards to the Indian and Iranian gods and traditions, so I dug deeper and found the connections between Indo-European languages, genetics, and cultures. This wasn't about any sort of political ideology at the time, but was mostly just my own studying coming from a Buddhist background. I was Buddhist for so long that basically I had forgotten even much about Christianity. But this was about the truth. I researched the histories of my people, of the Eurasian peoples, and in general the individual histories and cultures of peoples of the world. It slightly enraged me that as a kid, I and many I knew in the church would recite the lineage of biblical people who weren't genetically related to me, but didn't know the proper history of my own kingdom's tribe and faith. This was even worse for other cultures who weren't of Eurasian ancestry or European connections and didn't even have a remote connection to these stories, but had their own history erased by them. Before you know it, I was called home to my folks' interpretation of the Indo-European gods. I have been working hard ever since to bring awareness to the intercultural exchange and roots of Indo-European cultures, while stressing the importance of each culture's unique, diverse identity being their own. I feel that much of the problem with society today started with Abrahamic faiths. They were a cultural revolution on their own, much related to the current one of Marxism, which wants to a clean slate and to erase all culture and identity to a gray mass. The two major Abrahamic faiths just replaced with an equalizing biblical history. Peoples, cultures, and faiths aren't all the same. They are indeed related to one another, but each one is unique with its own weaknesses and strengths. When your virtues and identity come from your folk and your own history, you find strength in spirit and the peace in inner society. This is what people need today. I feel that the ancestors of all of our respective peoples are calling us, and I feel that the gods are calling us, and I feel that they're calling us towards, in my opinion, a proper dharmic path that is reflected in all Indo-European religions. And that is sort of the start of a lot of what I had done. I have done a lot of research. I've been to Sri Lanka, India. I speak Japanese and studied Japanese Buddhism for a while. I'm initiated into Japanese Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, and I act as a Gothi for an organization. And I have had a few in real life kindred groups that I have led, including Hammer and Vajra, which is sort of an online community one. My goal with this is been laid out for everybody to hear. I know that this is a lot of rambling. I was hesitant to do a podcast for multiple reasons. One of them is all the preparation work it takes, getting proper equipment. Right now, my first episode, I'll be honest, is being written on the phone, and I have read sort of a script at first. And I tend to ramble or rant. Sometimes my rants can get wildly inappropriate. Cancel culture is a thing. My beliefs don't align up with what is considerably the PC, politically correct landscape, and nor do I give a rat's ass about that. I have my goals. I am who I am. And I really don't care if people have a problem with that. But I do want to highlight people who differ in their approach, and if they can offer a good network of communities for us all to work together, I am more than down for that. And yes, that's what this is all about. So I hope you would like to join me on some of this journey, learn more about the interconnected Indo-European faith, general folk culture, and distinctive and unique folk faiths, and also a little bit of the history of the world and good culture. Thank you for joining me for this first podcast, and we'll see where it goes from here. I wish you all the best, and may the gods bless you on your journey.